We all have experiences that are tough blows. One of the criteria for PTSD is that you go through or witness something that's outside the course of normal human events. For example, if you have a loved one who's 95 years old and they've been declining for a few years and they die, that's painful. That's a lot of grief. It's a big, big loss, depending on how close you were. But that's not outside the course of normal life experience. If you are a soldier in one of the war zones and your cohort gets blown up right in front of you, that's outside the course of normal experience. And your brain is just not designed to be able to handle that. So that's the extreme. What about the bad stuff that just happens in life? Certainly PTSD situations are part of those. But in general, when we talk about how you make it through and bounce back, I just want to give you a couple of things to think about for your own resiliency. And also, if you're in a tough time right now, what's got to be built back first in order for you to get, life working again. And the first one is the foundation. We pour a slab. When you build a house, you pour a slab and you dig deep with the foundation. Many of my favorite verses talk about this, having a firm foundation. Jesus says it's like building a house on a rock instead of sand. And the firm foundation of life is without a doubt, okay? Without a doubt, it's not even close, is the quality and depth of close relationships. All the longitudinal studies in longevity and wellness and health and thriving and success in life, it all comes back to the number one factor is the quality of your closest relationships. So if you want to be resilient, that's got to be number one, without a doubt. Without a doubt. That's what one of my favorite verses says. Paul says we're to be rooted and grounded in love. That's the foundational statement. It makes us strong. People go through things, and when the support comes around them, that's what we want to do right now with, the people in this tragedy. People, it's going to be the people that come around that we're connected to where we feel that. Secondly, there's a frame to a house. And so what gets wiped out in a tragedy is the frame of the structure of our lives. Now, we have external structure. One of the things you got to build to be resilient, if you just have a life of white space, there's no schedule, there's no routines. Routines are very, very important, and they don't have to be big, elaborate, fancy routines. It's just that we know that people sleep better who go to bed at the same time every night, and they get up at the same time, and then they have a routine, and there's a structure to life. Okay, the way you're wired can change this. Some people are more tightly wired, they have more rigid structures or tight structures. Other people are more loosely wired, but even the loosely wired ones need routines and need structures to make the head work well. You go through hard things and the structure gets wiped out. And so I want you to think about if you're going through something, I used to treat people in inpatient hospital units. One of the things you would see an instant kind of a little bit of a sort of a stabilizing effect was you're in a hospital, we got a schedule. You're up and out of bed, you're going to group, you're going to this, you're going to that. And that structure, just like with a kid, you give them a structure and they calm down. I'm going to say one more thing about the structure. There's internal structure as well. The structure of your belief system. What grounds us is our, I hate to use this word because it gets into philosophy and a bunch of other stuff I don't mean, but I'm talking about your worldview. When we have a belief system, if for me, I know the foundation of the frame of my life is my faith. And no matter what else happens, I know that God is there and he will be there after this and he will be there through this and he was there before this. And I love the verse that says, when you're grounded like that in a relationship with God, that you will get bad news and won't be shaken. It's out of the Psalms. So your belief systems about yourself and your competency and can you learn? If you lose things, can you recover? I was talking to a guy who went through bankruptcy. He said, I've lost everything. I said, no, no, you haven't, dude. You have not. You really haven't lost, well, you haven't lost everything. He said, what do you mean? I said, because you didn't have anything, and it was the talents and abilities and focus and brains of your heart, mind, and soul that created everything you just lost. That's still there. You still have all those talents and abilities. So let's get to work. That's resiliency. So we got to focus on our internal world and what we believe and what we think and how we think. And the third thing about this house, and we'll stop with this one, is that you got to live in a house in a certain temperature. Now think about this. You build a house, it's got to feel good to be in it, in the temperature and your other senses. How about this one? It's got to smell good. You, when you build a house, you put in the temperature, the HVAC, the heating, and the air conditioning, depending on where you live, and the plumbing, because you've got to be able to regulate what comes into your house and what goes out of your house, right? And that's our emotional regulatory system. So what that means is how you process life. We eat food, we process it, we eliminate it, and if we don't have a way of flushing it out of the house into the sewage system, it's going to be stuck in the house. So you've got to be working on your ability to get bad stuff out of you. That's talking and confession and grieving and processing things with friends. That's a big part of resiliency is how you're processing negative things. Also, how you're looking at negative things. You know, when we interpret failure or loss or this, that, and the other in ways that are not healthy, like I'm a loser and it'll never be better again, and all of that kind of stuff, that tends to diminish resiliency versus if we have, even in the face of bad times, belief systems that, yeah, this is hard, but I can learn, I can figure out the next step in those kind of optimistic ways. That gives hope and resiliency. So that's kind of the regulatory stuff. But then on the other side of it, is temperature. You know, a house has got to have the ability when it gets too cold to heat itself up. When it gets too hot, to cool itself down. So we got to be working on our ability when emotions and anger and stress and frustration, working on the skills that bring the temperature down, working on the skills that calm us down. There's a number of these. We have entire, we got entire workshops and webinars. If you go to boundaries.me, if you're a subscriber, you have access to all of that telling you how to build all these. So we got to have a way to regulate the hyper alert states of stress and cortisol and fight or flight and all that anger, calm ourselves down. Also, when your mood gets low, you have to have the skills and abilities that are going to bring that back up. So just want you to think about focusing on those kinds of things as you think about resiliency